The story begins not with a feeling, but with a molecule. Picture this. You step into a mature forest, perhaps a misty jungle at dawn with soft green light filtering through a dense canopy. The air is cool, damp, and carries a distinct aroma, a complex bouquet of damp earth, decaying leaves, and something sharper like pine or cedar. That signature scent is your first introduction to the forest pharmacy. It is composed of volatile organic compounds, specifically a class known as phytoncides, which are antimicrobial essential oils vaporized into the air by trees and plants as a defense mechanism against insects, fungi, and bacteria. For the tree, it's a protective cloud. For you, it is a bioactive signal. When you inhale, these molecules travel through your respiratory tract and are absorbed into your bloodstream. This is the foundational premise of forest medicine. We are not passive visitors in a forest. We are participants in a biochemical exchange. The most robust research on this comes from Japan, where the practice of forest bathing was formally developed in the 1980s and has since become a cornerstone of national public health. Dr. King Lee, a leading immunologist at the Nippon Medical School in Tokyo, has spearheaded much of this research. In a seminal series of studies, Dr. Lai took groups of middle-aged businessmen, a demographic typically under high stress, on multi-day trips to various forest regions across Japan. Control groups were sent to urban city environments. The protocols were meticulous, specific, slow walks of prescribed durations, periods of silent sitting, and guided sensory engagement. Blood and urine samples were taken before, during, and after the trips, measuring a battery of biomarkers. The results, published in journals like the International Journal of Immunopathology and Pharmacology, were staggering. The forest group showed a significant increase in the number and activity of natural killer NK cells. These are a critical component of our innate immune system, a type of white blood cell that spontaneously attacks and destroys virus-infected cells and tumor cells without prior sensitization. They are our body's first line of defense against cellular abnormality. The data indicated NK activity increased by over 50% after a 3-day, 2-night forest bathing trip. Even more remarkably, this elevated level of activity and the increased number of NK cells persisted for more than 30 days after returning to urban life. In contrast, the urban control groups showed no such changes. The mechanism? Phytoncides like alpha-pinene and limonene were directly linked to this effect. Follow-up in vitro studies exposed human NK cells to these compounds and observed increased expression of perforin granzymes and granulizing the proteins. NK cells used to punch holes in and induce apoptosis, programmed cell death in target cells. This is not a vague boost to the immune system. It is a targeted, measurable enhancement of a specific, crucial anti-cancer and antiviral defense network. Concurrently, the researchers measured stress hormones. Salivary cortisol, the primary stress hormone secreted by the adrenal glands, showed a dramatic decline in the forest groups, often by 12 to 15%, dropping to levels significantly lower than the urban groups. Cortisol, when chronically elevated, is a known immunosuppressant. It inhibits NK cell activity. So, the forest environment creates a powerful double action. It directly stimulates immune function, while simultaneously removing a primary physiological suppressant of that function. Heart rate variability, HIV, data, a key indicator of autonomic nervous system balance, showed a pronounced shift toward parasympathetic dominance, the state of rest and digest associated with recovery, relaxation, and healing. This is the physiological antithesis of the sympathetic fight or flight state that characterizes modern, stressful living. The implications are profound. Here was quantifiable, repeatable evidence that a specific environment, a forest, could act as a powerful, non-pharmaceutical modulator of human physiology, offering protection against diseases like cancer and viral infections while ameliorating the destructive effects of chronic stress. This research, now replicated and expanded in South Korea, China, and Scandinavia, forms the bedrock of our understanding. It moves the benefit of nature from the realm of anecdote and mental well-being into the hard, quantifiable domain of clinical immunology. The forest, through the very air it creates, is quite literally speaking to our immune cells, encouraging them to become more vigilant, more active, and more effective guardians of our health. This dialogue is silent, invisible, and automatic, requiring no conscious effort on our part beyond the act of being present in that environment. It is a form of biological reciprocity that has evolved over millennia, a hidden alliance between the plant kingdom and our own cellular defenses that we are only now beginning to decode with the tools of modern science. While the immune system findings are revolutionary, the forest's conversation with our biology extends far beyond our white blood cells, reaching directly into the architecture and function of our brain. This is the cognitive and psychological frontier of forest medicine, where the environment acts as a reset button for our overtaxed modern minds. The leading theory here is attention restoration theory, ART, proposed by psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan. ART posits that we have two main forms of attention: directed attention and involuntary attention. Directed attention is the finite, exhaustible resource we use for work, solving complex problems, and resisting distractions. It's what you're using right now to follow this script. This system relies on the prefrontal cortex and becomes fatigued with overuse, leading to mental fatigue, irritability, and reduced effectiveness. Involuntary attention, in contrast, is captured effortlessly by stimuli that are inherently fascinating without demanding cognitive effort, like the flicker of flame, the movement of clouds, or the patterns of light and shadow in a forest. Natural environments, particularly those with what the Kaplans call soft fascination, are rich in stimuli that gently hold our involuntary attention. This allows the neural mechanisms underlying directed attention to rest and replenish. Think of it like a muscle. Directed attention is the muscle you use for a heavy lift. Involuntary attention in nature is the deep, restorative sleep that allows that muscle to recover and grow stronger. The data supporting this is compelling. Studies from the University of Michigan, led by researchers like Mark Berman, have used rigorous experiments to demonstrate this effect. In one classic study, participants performed a demanding cognitive task that heavily taxed directed attention, like repeating a series of numbers backward. After this mental depletion, one group took a walk in an urban setting. Another took a walk in an arboretum or forested park. Both walks were equal in duration and physical exertion. Upon retesting, the nature walk group showed a dramatic 20% improvement in performance on the attention-demanding task, while the urban walk group showed no significant improvement and sometimes performed worse. The urban environment, with its traffic, advertisements, and unpredictable noises, continued to demand directed attention. Watch out for that car, ignore that sign, preventing any restoration. The forest environment, with its flowing, pattern-rich but non-threatening stimuli, provided the necessary mental respite. This cognitive restoration manifests in measurable creativity boosts. A study published in PLOS ONE from psychologists at the University of Utah and the University of Kansas took participants on a 4 to 6 day wilderness backpacking trip, completely disconnected from all technology. Before and after they administered the Remote Associates Test, RAT, a standard measure of creative problem-solving and convergent thinking. The results showed a 50% increase in performance on the RAT after the nature immersion. The researchers concluded that the combination of exposure to nature and the removal of constant technological interruptions allowed deeper, more associative thought processes to emerge. But what is happening inside the brain, structurally? Pioneering work in Germany using the ongoing Berlin Aging Study has employed high-resolution MRI scans to investigate the relationship between urban versus rural living and brain structure. The findings, published in scientific reports, are striking. They found that city dwellers who lived closer to forests showed a physiologically healthier amygdala structure. The amygdala is the brain's central hub for processing fear, stress, and anxiety. In individuals with chronic stress and anxiety disorders, the amygdala can become overactive and even enlarged. The German study found that proximity to and time spent in forested areas was correlated with a lower probability of showing the kind of amygdala activation and structural predispositions linked to stress-related psychiatric illnesses. This suggests that regular forest exposure doesn't just calm the amygdala in the moment. It may contribute to a more resilient, less stress-reactive architecture over time. Furthermore, fMRI studies show that viewing nature scenes, compared to urban scenes, deactivates areas of the prefrontal cortex associated with rumination, the repetitive, negative, self-focused thought patterns linked to depression and anxiety. In essence, the forest environment pulls us out of our own heads, breaking the cycle of worry and redirecting our awareness outward to a larger, more patterned, and less judgmental reality. This neurocognitive shift is accompanied by the hormonal changes we discussed, lower cortisol and increased parasympathetic activity create the internal biochemical milieu conducive to this brain reset. The scent of phytoncides may also play a direct neurological role. Inhaled compounds can cross the blood-brain barrier or signal via the olfactory nerve, which has direct pathways to the amygdala and hippocampus involved in memory and emotion. While this is an active area of research, it is plausible that the very molecules boosting our NK cells are also sending calming signals directly to our emotional brain centers. Therefore, the forest's impact is a holistic neuroimmunoendocrine event. It is not merely that you feel less stressed. Your stress physiology is objectively quieter. It is not merely that you feel clear-headed. Your cognitive control networks have been given a documented respite, leading to measurable improvements in performance and creativity. This convergence of psychological theory, cognitive testing, and neuroimaging provides a robust framework for understanding the profound mental clarity and emotional peace reported anecdotally for centuries by wilderness wanderers. It transforms a walk in the woods from a leisure activity into a form of essential cognitive and emotional maintenance. A necessary reboot for a brain evolved for natural environments, but trapped in a digital, urban world. Beneath the visible world of trees and ferns lies an even more profound dimension of the forest's intelligence, the soil. This brings us to the revolutionary and somewhat mind-bending concept of the wood wide web, a term coined by forest ecologists Suzanne Simard to describe the vast, symbiotic network of mycorrhizal fungi that connects trees and plants within an ecosystem. These fungal threads, called hyphae, form a microscopic web that links the root systems of individual trees, even of different species, creating a communal network for the exchange of nutrients, water, and most astonishingly chemical warning signals. Through this network, a tree under attack by insects can send biochemical distress signals to its neighbors, who then preemptively ramp up their own chemical defenses. A mother tree or hub tree can shuttle carbon and nutrients to shaded, struggling seedlings to help them survive. This challenges the Darwinian notion of forests as mere collections of individuals engaged in ruthless competition. Instead, it reveals them as cooperative, communicative communities. The relevance to human health is indirect but profound. This fungal network is a foundational component of forest health and resilience. A healthy, mature, interconnected forest produces a richer, more complex and stable array of airborne compounds, the very phytoncides and microbial life we inhale. The diversity of trees, facilitated by this underground cooperation, leads to a diversity in the aerosol cocktail of the forest atmosphere. Furthermore, the soil itself, teeming with billions of bacteria and fungi, is aerosolized. When we walk through a forest, especially on a humid day or after rain, we are breathing in a low-dose cloud of environmental microorganisms. This is the hygiene hypothesis, or more accurately now, the old friends hypothesis in action. This theory suggests that a lack of exposure to the diverse microorganisms present in natural environments during childhood and throughout life is linked to the rise in inflammatory and autoimmune diseases in developed, urbanized societies. Our immune systems, honed over millennia to expect a certain level of microbial interaction, become dysregulated in overly sterile environments, leading to overreactions against harmless substances, allergies, or the body's own tissues, autoimmunity. Inhaling forest air is like reintroducing our immune system to its old friends, a diverse suite of non-pathogenic bacteria and fungi that help educate and calibrate our immune responses, promoting a balanced anti-inflammatory state. Studies have shown that children growing up on farms, in homes with greater microbial diversity, have lower rates of asthma and allergies. The forest is the ultimate source of that benevolent microbial diversity. A fascinating 2015 study from Finland provided a remarkable real-world experiment. Researchers compared the skin and gut microbiota of children living in standard urban daycares with yards of gravel and pavement to children in daycares where the playgrounds had been transformed with forest undergrowth, moss, and grass. After just 28 days, the children in the forest floor daycare showed a significant increase in the diversity of their skin and gut microbiota, moving their profiles closer to those of children living in rural, forested areas. Their immune profiles also showed beneficial changes, including increased anti-inflammatory cytokines and higher levels of regulatory T cells, which help prevent autoimmune reactions. This suggests that direct, tactile contact with forest soil and vegetation can directly inoculate us with a health-promoting microbiome. So, our engagement with the forest is multisensory and multi-root. We are inhaling its volatile compounds and its microbes, and through touch, or even the microbial transfer from air to skin, we are seeding our own personal microbiome with forest-derived organisms. This creates a feedback loop. A healthy, interconnected forest supported by its fungal network produces a more therapeutic atmosphere and terrain, which in turn promotes healthier, more balanced human microbiomes and immune function. This understanding elevates the forest from a backdrop for recreation to an active participant in our biological and ecological identity. We are not separate from this system. We are, in a very real sense, embedded within it. Our health is intertwined with the health of the fungal networks in the soil and the bacterial clouds in the air. This perspective is radical because it shifts conservation from an ethical, save the trees argument to a matter of pragmatic, personal, and public health. Protecting old-growth forests and expanding urban green spaces become an investment in human immunological and psychological resilience. It frames deforestation and biodiversity loss not just as an environmental tragedy, but as a direct threat to a critical, life-supporting infrastructure, and infrastructure that actively maintains human health through continuous, invisible biochemical and microbial exchange. When we degrade forests, we are not just losing scenery, we are dismantling a global health system we are only beginning to understand, one that has been silently supporting our physiology since the dawn of our species. Given this overwhelming evidence, the critical question becomes, how do we translate this science into a practical, accessible protocol, especially for the vast majority of people who live in cities, far from misty jungles or pristine pine forests? The goal is not to prescribe a one-size-fits-all wilderness retreat, but to distill the active ingredients of the forest experience into principles that can be adapted to various contexts. This is the applied science of forest medicine, moving from the laboratory and the deep woods into urban parks, backyard gardens, and even our homes. The first principle is intentionality and duration. Forest bathing or nature therapy is not about hiking for exercise or covering distance. It is about being rather than doing. The Japanese protocols typically recommend a minimum of 2 hours for a meaningful session, with the benefits scaling with duration and frequency. A weekly 2 to 3 hour session in a quality green space can yield measurable cumulative effects. The pace should be slow, meandering, with frequent pauses to sit, observe, and engage the senses. The second principle is sensory engagement. This is a conscious, mindful practice. It involves actively listening to the layers of sound, the wind and the leaves, bird calls, distant water. It involves touching the bark of different trees, feeling the texture of moss or cool soil. It involves deeply inhaling the scents and visually absorbing the colors and patterns without labeling or judging. That's a maple, versus simply noticing the fractal pattern of the leaves against the sky. This sensory immersion is what triggers the shift from directed to involuntary attention, facilitating cognitive restoration. The third principle is seeking quality over mere greenery. Not all green spaces are equally therapeutic. A manicured lawn with isolated trees offers some benefit, but a diverse, multi-layered ecosystem with a canopy, understory, shrubs, and ground cover provides a far richer sensory and biochemical experience. Prioritize locations with a variety of tree species, especially conifers like pine, cedar, and cypress, which are high phytoncide emitters, water features, and minimal urban noise intrusion. The fourth principle is embracing the micro. You don't need a national park. The concept of pocket forests or microdosing on nature is valid. Studies show that even viewing nature through a window can reduce stress and improve hospital recovery times. Creating a forest-like environment at home with houseplants, especially aromatic ones like rosemary, lavender, and peace lilies. Using essential oil diffusers with phytoncide-rich oils, like hidoku cypress or pine. With caution for allergies, and playing high-quality nature soundscapes can provide a proxy, especially on days when a park visit isn't possible. These are supportive practices, not replacements, but they help maintain a connection. For urban dwellers, the fifth principle is strategic planning. Use tools like satellite maps to find the largest, most wooded parks within a reasonable distance. Make a commitment to visit them regularly, treating it as a non-negotiable medical appointment. Time your visits for early morning when phytoncide release can be higher and crowds are lower. Practice digital detox during the sessions. Leave your phone in your bag or on airplane mode. The presence of a device, even if unused, keeps the brain in a state of potential alert, undermining the parasympathetic shift. The sixth principle is community and guidance. While solo practice is powerful, guided forest therapy walks led by certified practitioners are becoming more available globally. These guides are trained in facilitating deeper sensory openings and creating a safe, reflective container for the experience, often leading to more profound outcomes. Alternatively, going with a friend or partner with a shared intention of quiet connection can be beneficial, as long as the focus remains on the environment, not on conversation. Finally, the principle of cumulative integration. The effects are cumulative and long-term. Think of forest exposure not as a one-off treatment, but as a lifelong relationship and a core component of a lifestyle aimed at preventative health. Tracking subjective feelings in a journal after each visit, noting mood, energy levels, and focus can reinforce the habit by providing personal data on its benefits. For those dealing with specific health challenges like anxiety, hypertension, or recovering from illness, working with a healthcare provider to integrate nature exposure as a complementary therapy is a forward-thinking approach already adopted in some progressive medical systems in Scandinavia and East Asia. The barriers are often perceptual, not logistical. We dismiss a local park as not real nature or we feel guilty for spending 2 hours doing nothing. The science reframes that time as active, productive self-care with documented physiological returns that rival or surpass many conventional wellness interventions. It is an investment with compounding interest for your immune system, your brain, and your emotional balance. By adopting these principles, you are not just going for a walk, you are engaging in a structured, evidence-based practice of ecological reciprocity. Tapping into an ancient source of healing that is freely available, has no negative side effects, and reconnects you to the fundamental web of life you are a part of. As we emerge from this deep exploration, the picture that comes into focus is one of breathtaking interconnection. The misty jungle at dawn, the pine forest, the local oak woodland, they are not passive settings but active, living pharmacies and sanatoriums. They emit a sophisticated array of chemical signals that lower our stress hormones, enhance our immune surveillance against cancer, and calm the fear centers of our brains. They provide a pattern of gentle stimulation that restores our depleted attention and unlocks creative insights. They harbor a world of microbial life that tutors our immune systems, promoting tolerance and reducing inflammation. This is not alternative medicine, it is frontier medicine grounded in rigorous interdisciplinary science. It tells a new story about who we are. We are organisms exquisitely adapted to and dependent upon signals from the natural world for our physiological and psychological homeostasis. Our migration into cities and our immersion in digital environments represent a dramatic departure from the sensory and biochemical conditions our biology expects. The rise in stress-related illnesses, attention disorders, immune dysfunctions, and feelings of disconnection may not be coincidental. They may be symptoms of a nature deficit disorder in the most clinical sense, a deprivation of essential environmental inputs required for optimal functioning. This understanding is both a diagnosis and a prescription. The prescription is to reintegrate meaningful, regular contact with vibrant, diverse ecosystems into the fabric of our lives. This is a call to action that operates on multiple levels. On a personal level, it is a call to prioritize your biophilic health. Start now. Block time this week for a slow, sensory walk in the greenest space you can access. Put your phone away. Breathe deeply. Touch the trees. Listen. Observe the data of your own nervous system calming down. Make it a ritual. On a community level, it is a call to advocate for and invest in green infrastructure. Support local initiatives to create and protect urban forests, green corridors, and rewilding projects. Understand that these are not just aesthetic improvements, they are public health infrastructure as critical as sewers and clinics. They provide free, preventative health care to entire populations, reducing the burden on medical systems. On a global level, this science forms a powerful, new argument for the conservation of wild places and biodiversity. Protecting the Amazon, the boreal forests, and ancient woodlands is not just about saving trees or charismatic animals. It is about preserving the planetary systems that generate the very chemical and microbial signatures that maintain human health. It is about safeguarding the old friends our immune systems need. The forest is asking for nothing but to exist, and in return, it gives us a potent, multifaceted medicine. Our task is to remember our role in this partnership, to step back into the conversation we have been absent from for too long. This is the journey from separation to reunion, from illness towards a wholeness found only in connection. The path forward is literally beneath our feet, in the nearest patch of wildness, waiting for us to simply show up, breathe, and receive. If this vision of interconnected health resonates with you, if you feel the pull to not only understand this science but to live it, then your next steps are clear. First, solidify your commitment here. Smash that like button right now. It tells the algorithm this in-depth content is valuable and helps others discover it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are building a community dedicated to mastering the art and science of thriving, and this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Every week, we break down complex topics like regenerative agriculture, circadian biology, neuroplasticity, and more, always through the lens of actionable, evidence-based science. Your subscription ensures you get every future deep dive. Ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Second, take this knowledge into the world. Start a conversation. Share this video with one person who needs to hear this message: a friend, a family member, someone struggling with stress or seeking deeper well-being. Spread the science. Third, and most importantly, act. This weekend, make your first or your most intentional forest bathing appointment with yourself. Go to a park, a trail, a garden, practice the principles. Then, come back to the comments below and tell us about your experience. What did you notice? How did you feel? Let's build a repository of shared experience right here in the comments section. Your insights will inspire others. This is more than a video. It's an invitation to a different way of being. An invitation to step into the misty jungle, both literal and metaphorical, and rediscover a part of yourself you may have forgotten. I'll see you in the next video where we continue to explore the frontiers of human potential. Until then, get outside, breathe deep, and remember, you are part of the forest and it is part of you. Thank you for watching, for engaging, and for being here.